People joining. So, hello. I would like to formally introduce myself. My name is Emily Maxwell. I am one of the performance learning program teachers at Seacove Secondary. I teach humanities, so I teach in the social studies and English portion of the program. And I'd like to introduce Brian Hughes. Hello, Brian. And he is muted and he is unmuted.
I think I figured out how to work. We think by now we'd know what we're doing, but we're still figuring it out. We're using a new tool, new to us tool tonight. So if things are a little more erratic than normal, that's why. So thank you, Emily. And joining us as well, probably, I think she's online now, but we don't have her full attention yet, but she'll be able to come and join us in a little bit later in the meeting is Petra Willems. And so as Emily said, we are three of the team of teachers that are behind PLP that we will be presenting to you tonight. So thank you for that great opening and just watching the people coming into the room. It's so great that many of you have, all of you have given up your time tonight to learn a little bit more about what PLP is and what it's all about. Before we sort of get rolling with the formal part of the program, I just thought we would describe some of the protocols for tonight. This is your meeting. This is your chance to learn a little bit about what this crazy thing that we call PLP is. So we want to make sure that you have a chance to get your questions answered. So at any time tonight, we'd love to involve you in the meeting and have you participate. And I know there's lots of students joining us tonight, which is fantastic, and parents as well, and lots of familiar names as well. So welcome everybody. Emily's going to keep, while I'm speaking, Emily will be keeping an eye on the chat room or the chat box, I guess, the chat channel. So at any time, you can feel free to use that to drop in a question. We'll have some chat breaks in the program tonight where if we haven't addressed your question or you have a question, we will stop at those points and get caught up. So feel free to use that. If you're brave enough, there is a virtual hand raise function, if you can find that in Teams. And we are able to turn on your microphone, or you can, I think, unmute yourself and ask a question. We would love to do that as well. And if you are watching this via the replay, or if you have a question that comes up after the fact or occurs to you in the days after this meeting, feel free, of course, to email us, and we'll be giving that information on how to do that a little bit later as well. Traditionally, of course, like most things, this would have been an in-person meeting, and we will have an announcement very shortly about that. But this format is a little bit still foreign and strange because I feel like I'm talking to myself, because I'm just seeing myself on the webcam, which is very disconcerting. But we don't really get to see and hear from all of you. So if you would be so brave to be involved tonight, we'd love to engage with you. Okay, with that being said, let's just give you a brief overview of kind of what the plan for tonight is. We are going to answer the question that's probably the burning question for you, which is, what is PLP? We're going to talk about how we learn. We have anticipated some of the questions you may have. The most frequently asked questions, especially from new applicants or people who are wondering about what we're all about. And then we'll briefly go over the application process, the steps involved, and some of those key dates that are upcoming. All right. So with that in mind, I'm going to tempt fate here by trying something a little bit different. Yeah, don't be alarmed. Well, okay, we're going to try a different, exciting view here. See if this is going to work. Okay.
Ooh, looks nice.
Okay, good. Yeah. So it's a little more personal if I feel like I'm talking to you, but now you have to see more of me, so maybe it's not a win-win, but here we go. Okay, so here we go. So you've met us. let's just dive right into it. Oh, first of all, we would love to meet you in person. So tomorrow night, this is a formal invitation to anybody who's hearing my voice right now to join us in person at the school tomorrow night for the first in-person PLP exhibition since 2019. We have our winter exhibition, COVID compliant and friendly, at the school in person tomorrow night from 5:30 to 7:30. This is a fantastic opportunity to see PLP learning in action. We will have all 5 grade levels presenting work from the projects they have completed since September that they've been working on this last term. So it runs the gamut from history projects to science and math projects to revolutions on trial in the theater and a mock theater experience. So it really will be a great night. It's open house format, so feel free to drop in anytime, but really you will want to come early. And we have methods and way to disperse the crowds. So as I said, it's COVID compliant. Masks are required indoors in the school to be worn, but other than that, we welcome all comers. So if that is something that works with your schedules, we'd love to welcome you tomorrow night to see that. In January, we are going to be having a in-person meeting for new applicants, 7 p.m. at Sea Cove on January 27th. So mark your calendars. For people who are listening to the meeting tonight, it is going to be a similar overview of the program. So not really different information, but what we will on that evening also feature learner and parent panels. So you can hear directly from some of the students, you can hear from parents about their experience in PLP, and you have a chance, of course, then to put them on the hot seat and ask whatever questions you would like to have them answer instead of just talking to us. So lots of opportunity for questions and answers. That comes after there will be a district information night for the enhanced programs and SECO-based school programming. So it comes quite late in January because the applications are going to be due just a few days later. So for those of you who are listening to my voice tonight, good for you, because you're going to have an early jump on what you need to know for the application process, but you may want to mark your calendar for that meeting, which will be here at the school on January 27th. Okay, I thought we would open tonight with getting you involved. We are an inquiry-based program, so we are curious, and we hope you are too. You hopefully have come to this meeting tonight wanting to know something. So what we'd like you to do is find the chat box, and hopefully everyone's going to participate in this. We want you to use the chat feature to share your need to know question. So if you had to answer that question there, what I want to know tonight is fill in the blank. If you want to put that in the chat box right now, type your question, but do not hit return to send your answer. So you're going to kind of just type it in and load it up, and then we're going to all hit return at the same time to flood the chat stream with all of your questions. So that's going to be our goal there. And to sort of give you a countdown so that you know when to hit enter. And just actually, to be honest, and Emily has not seen this, so I can't wait for her reaction. I was just looking for any excuse to use my dancing dog timer. All right, the 1 minute starts now. Load your question, and when we reach 0 on the timer, hit enter. All right, 10 seconds, 10 seconds. All right, and ready? All right, there we go. Hit enter. Let's flood. Oh, look at those questions coming in. Awesome. Okay. Really, that was just an elaborate excuse to get the dancing dog on there. Hopefully you enjoyed that. If you did not, then what's wrong with you? Perfect. Okay, these are great questions coming in. I'm able to sort of keep one eye on them, and Emily will be keeping track of them as well. See if we make sure we get answers to you. And I actually already know in the presentation tonight, there are lots of answers in there that we will be getting to. So, all right, let's get right into it. I'm going to start with the most boring part of the presentation first, which is especially for students who are new to high school or new to thinking about what a grade 8 student's schedule looks like. It looks like this. So whether you're in PLP or whether you are in not in PLP and you're coming to Seacove or really any other high school, you are going to move from one classroom and one teacher, or maybe just a few teachers, to a whole bunch of different classes with different teachers. Students that are in PLP 8 and 9, it looks like this. The courses that are labeled here, Humanities, Cymatics, Maker, and PGP, are all inside PLP. So those are all with PLP teachers and with the same PLP students. The 3 classes that you have, 3 or 4 classes that you have outside of PLP are French, PE, and the elective choices that you make. So in PLP, we do things a little bit differently. We have what we call humanities, which is your English and social studies taught together as one subject, and cymatics, which is a blended version of math and science. It's the same 4 courses as everybody gets, but just taught in a bit of a different way. For PLP students only, you also get an elective called Maker, which is a adapted version of skills and design, information technology. And then for your careers component, we call it PGP, stands for Personal Growth Plan, which covers goal setting, personal productivity, habits, and a few other great things. So that is really what it looks like. In a standard calendar year, you would have 8 courses. For PLP, 5 of your 8 courses are inside the timetable, and PGP is a 6th course, which is outside the timetable, meaning it meets a little bit differently. So you would have those 5, plus you have 3 more, French, PE, and your electives. So it's really the same as far as the courses that you would have inside PLP or outside PLP. So what makes it different? Well, the major difference is kind of how we learn. So we are a project-based learning program, and tonight we will help you explain a little bit what that means and understand what that means. The thing that probably people, if they know anything about PLP, they think of us as a technology-based program because they might know that we use iPads, because it's the easiest thing to walk by the classroom and sort of see that's different. All of our students use an iPad instead of using a binder, for example, or textbooks. So we'll talk a little bit about what that looks like. And then the thing that has been sort of derailed a little bit, thanks to the pandemic, but is coming back actually in a pretty exciting way, is our beyond the classroom learning component, where we go beyond the school walls and learn in the real world. So we'll break those down a little bit for you tonight. If you ask some of our students, though, what is PLP, or what you even ask the teachers, this is kind of what we really hope it is in spirit. So, you know, there's a lot of feeling that school is about getting ready for real life or to prepare you for the real world. And our personal approach and our philosophy is that students shouldn't be rehearsing or waiting for real life. This is real life for you. So we want you to start working on skills and practice the knowledge that you need and apply that knowledge to find answers, asking questions, do work at school that feels more like the real world. This is really based on this idea, right? And if we actually think about like, what is the world that we're living at now? A critique here of a lot of schooling is that we're preparing students for jobs that don't actually even exist yet, using technologies that haven't been invented in order to solve problems we don't even know are problems yet. So it's less maybe about the way schools used to think about what their role was in the past and preparing people more to be successful in the world that we live in today. What that actually means is that we are trying to develop agency, which is a fancy word, but we want PLP learners to be the most successful students, workers, citizens that they can be. We want them to succeed as self-advocates, independent agents in whatever arena after high school. So for most of our students, that's going on to some kind of like post-secondary education, college, university, trade school, etc., or it might be right into the workplace. But wherever they do, we want them to be prepared to be successful. There's a lot of academic research and employment workforce research that has been done that shows that most students, in fact, 1 in 6 only, 1 in 6 are actually not prepared. They're unable to solve problems that require thinking. Employability, 4 out of 5 employers say that most high school graduates arrive in the workplace with some gap in their preparation. And the post-secondary schools, universities are noticing this and they're responding to that as well. It's a very different world than maybe even your parents who are with you listening to this tonight remember from when they were in school, and even their experience of post-secondary is different. And to sort of give a little bit of a flavor of that, we're going to show you a very short video that comes from UBC that describes how they have adapted their admission procedures and policies to sort of respond to these new trends. So let's take a look at this.
The personal profile section of your UBC application is your opportunity to tell us more about.
Oops, I see we have a sharing fail. 1 second, please.
I think we have lost it.
Thank you for bearing with us. Oh, whoops. Okay.
Oh, I now see your playlist.
All right. Well, I almost disconnected myself from the meeting, so luckily I didn't hit that button.
Well, we've been there before, so I'm also glad.
Okay.
We don't see it again. We saw it there for a sec, but there we go.
The personal profile section of your UBC application is your opportunity to tell us more about you and your experiences beyond academics. The short essay questions need to be answered in depth. They're definitely not something you want to rush through. Like your grades, your personal profile has a significant impact on your admission, so read over the questions carefully and take time to think and reflect. Your answers will set you apart from other students who also have high grades. Look at all of your past experiences, big and small. What and how did they teach you about the world, about yourself? Maybe you're interested in nature in all of its forms. Or maybe you picked up a hobby because a loved one inspired you. Your transcript tells us about what you have learned in school, but not what you have learned in life. This is where the personal profile comes in. What have you learned that you will never forget? What represents your achievements, passions, and experiences best? How have you grown, and how has your perspective matured? Everyone's experiences and opportunities are different. How have you made the most of yours? After you submit your application, your personal profile will be reviewed by trained UBC readers. Their evaluations are checked, double-checked, and then combined with your academic average to make the admission decision. This is where all your experiences converge. How will your past shape your future?
Okay, think, Emily, can you indicate if we're back on here? Okay, good. Thank you. Okay, so that's a very interesting video that UBC made a couple years ago. And it really, the personal profile was in response to the fact that they had many high school graduates arriving with fantastic transcripts and academic credentials, but not really the skills, resiliency, or they just needed another metric in addition to grades to help better understand who their students are. The point they make in there, which we think is a direct analogous to the message of PLP, is the idea of experiences and opportunities contribute to who you are. And really, if you're listening to this meeting tonight, it's because you're curious enough to find out what other paths are available to you as a student as you enter high school or as you are looking to enter the next grade level. And PLP is an experience and an opportunity that has the potential to distinguish you. It is a different path of study. And has been recognized by UBC as such, and is actually given added weight and consideration in applications because they understand its enhanced program nature, recognizes that in addition to content understanding and mastery, what we would expect all students who take the courses that form PLP to have, we are emphasizing through direct instruction, practice, and then by you creating a portfolio of evidence to show the other things that you're seeing on the screen here. So, you know, a lot of times, a lot of classrooms will talk about collaboration or critical thinking, but it's actually explicitly taught and built into our instructional frameworks. So we really are trying to, starting even in grade 8 and then through to grade 12, work on the idea of mindset, having an academic mindset, growth mindset, the disposition of a student that wants to succeed. Okay, we are guided, we are a team of teachers that are guided by these ideas. Some of our existing students sometimes snicker at this because it's not always true, maybe, but this is our aspiration. We really want the time a student spends in school to be the best hours of their day. Our purpose for doing this is to spark that lifelong curiosity, a love for learning that will turn today's students into the leaders of tomorrow. PLP in summary then is this. It's a place for curious learners that want to make their time in school count. You have to, if you're in grade 8 or 9, you have to come to school. It is legally your requirement, so you should want to make the best out of that time. In a moment, we're going to break down what does it mean by deeper learning, project-based design thinking, what's the technology all about, what are the field schools, which you saw a little bit of that montage in the opening video. Is it really fun? We're going to try and address some of that stuff, but this is really what it is. This is an elective program. You choose to join, you choose to go down this path because we hope it's you deciding you want to make your time in school count. Okay, I know there were a whole bunch of great questions. Some of them are going to be directly addressed in our presentation, but let's just take a quick question break here. You may want to throw in some more questions in the chat room, or you may want to raise your hand, or you may want to just hang back a little bit because this next segment, as I said, will directly address a lot of the questions that came up. But Emily, is there anything that you feel is not going to be addressed that we should cross off the list right now?
Is not going to be addressed. Lots about field schools, lots about the iPad, and several about, I think, C-Cove questions. I'm not sure if you're going to get to that. Typical day electives, which I think are more like C-Cove schedule questions. Other than that, a lot about like the application process. So I think you will talk about that and how to do it. Okay.
Okay, great. So let's save those then, and you can just watch to make sure we actually are addressing those.
Okay.
Okay, and
I'm keeping track.
Okay, great, fantastic. So tonight then, let's talk about the how we learn section. I said before, we're project-based learning. What does that mean? Well, lots of people think they know exactly what this means because we've all been in school, we've all done projects. And for most people, this sort of means like a little shiver runs down their spine, because it means like doing a lot of stuff in the classroom and then a very stress-filled weekend where you build the project and then you hand it in on Monday. That's not what we mean at all when we say PBL. So PBL is about learning as a process. It looks like what you're seeing on the bottom part of this graph here. It is about an engaging and authentic task. Like we said before, it's something in the real world, maybe a real problem that needs to be solved, some work that people actually outside the school are being paid to do. It is something that has some connection and meaning to you. The things that you see in red on this slide are looking fairly familiar, maybe, because these are things that happen in classrooms everywhere. So of course, there's a few lectures, there is homework, you have to do research, you might do labs, activities, but interspersed, you have some things that are a little bit different. Lots of benchmarks, lots of reflection, lots of conferencing, discussions, lots of collaboration. Working through that problem to solve it is the project that you are going to work through. It's not about a culminating product at the end, but it's a culminating presentation of your learning. The line at the top there shows you what happens typically in a lot of classrooms, where you might have a teacher-led event, you might have some activity, maybe a quiz, repeat, 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 and then the project gets done at the end, kind of like the dessert. That's not the case of how we learn. And again, I reiterate my invitation to come see the exhibition tomorrow, where you will see that sort of culminating event, but the learning has happened long ago. It's happened as we've moved through some driving questions that now the students are just happy to share the final results with their public audience tomorrow. So in other words, PBL is this: we want students to be able to come home and be able to explain, why are we learning this, right? The students need to understand that at all times for it to be relevant and for them to be engaged. It should be grounded in real skills, so things that are actually transferable beyond, a school assignment, but actually a skill that can be used in other classes, in other contexts, outside the building. It is a process. It's not something that you just complete at the end. And in PLP, we often talk about failing. And FAIL is an acronym for first attempt in learning. If we are not failing, we are not learning. So we are a critique-based program. You get a lot of feedback on your performance, on how you're doing things well, how you're doing ways that you can improve, and then you revise, and eventually you get smarter. Deeper learning. We are an inquiry-based program, so it is really about learning to think. We want you to think, we want you to question, and we want you to support your arguments with evidence. To do that, we work on complex problems, right? Not worksheets. You will work in teams a lot. So in the real world, there are jobs where you might work all by yourself in solo isolation, but not very many in today's knowledge worker economy. So you will practice working in teams, drawing on each other's strengths and developing your own. We will push you to stretch beyond your cognitive comfort zone. So to reach maybe a little bit further than you're able to grasp right now is how you learn. Those are the risks we talk about that will pay off. The performance in performance learning program is we want to push you to perform in ways that you might have thought you weren't possibly able to before. And over the course of a year, we see your growth as a learner. Design thinking, we are an iPad-based program, of course, we already know that, but we have a heavy emphasis with hands-on learning by making. Not everything that we do is digital. We solve real problems rooted in our community where we live. You will be asked to be a creator, an inventor, a maker, in addition to a thinker. We are a technology program, and why? It's because of this. Right? We really believe that we are living in 2021, and we are able to have on our desks now a device that can allow students to do things that previously were inconceivable. So this is sort of the guiding thought here, is if we can ask students to do more meaningful, authentic, and relevant tasks and create things that they empower them in ways that they never could be before. Why aren't we doing that? So PLP is now going into its 11th year of history, and that is 9 of those years with the iPad as our device. And it's because of what we see it possibly doing in the hands of students that we feel so strongly that the technology enables the learning that we do. It's an iPad for learning. Students don't have to wait for their teacher to maybe every couple weeks, months, book some computer time. We don't use textbooks in the traditional way. The great thing about having a device that is connected to all the world's information is that we're able to put in students' hands the most relevant, timely, useful resources that teachers can curate for them. Also, it allows students to do, yes, you will write, you still learn to write, that is a keystone skill, but you will also learn to create, design, photograph, film, edit, mix, synthesize, all of the skills that you would need to do. And then because of the nature of the way we work in public, you can publish it to the world and share your learning and get feedback in, again, ways that just weren't possible previously. All right, I already kind of let the cat out of the bag, but we already know that the iPad is our platform of choice. So it is the required device that students have to provide. It is a personally owned device, and we'll explain a little bit more about that a little bit later. But yes. Okay, and then lastly, in the How We Learn section, field schools, we strongly believe that you live in the real world, so you should learn there too. Whenever possible, we like to take our learning outside. That can mean field trips, day trips. It can mean just walking into the neighborhood around the school. We like to visit interesting places, meet interesting people, and put the learning where it makes sense and make connections with place as much as with something in the textbook. Don't just read about places, go there. We have a well-known and tradition of travel, something that I said that has been derailed a little bit of late, but actually I'm very excited to sort of pre-soft announce that probably by the end of this week, we'll be announcing our return to overnight trips for very soon, actually, for some grades. And we're navigating what that means in this living with COVID world. But in the past, we have offered overnight field study excursions at every grade level. And honestly, as teachers, we can tell you that it has been a detriment to the program not being able to do this because, of course, the fabulous learning opportunities they afford, but also just in cohesion as a learning team and in the relationship that we have with each other and with the students. We are really looking forward and excited about being able to do that again. What makes our trips a little bit different is that they're not just field trips for fun. They are fun, hopefully, but they are pretty deeply and tightly integrated with learning objectives and projects. So again, when we talk about doing things in the real world, meeting interesting people, being filmmakers, being journalists, being historians, sometimes that requires actually being on location to be able to do those things. So all of that is rolled into the travels that we go. I see someone just asked, where's the furthest place we've gone? I guess by pure miles, it would be Vietnam. We were in Vietnam just before the pandemic broke wide open with our grade 12 class in 2020. Yes, in March 2020.
2020.
Yeah.
That was the year.
We have been we've been all over Canada. We've been to Ottawa. We've been to
Alberta.
All over BC. Obviously in this picture, you're seeing San Francisco. That's the Oregon coast. And that's Eastern Washington for the Manhattan Project. So we have been everywhere. Okay. So we'll have another break here in a second to get caught up on your questions, but just in summary, a few last little points here. PLP is a secondary enhanced program. That means you are getting everything you get when you are a regular student here at the school, and it's enhanced. Those enhancements come through like the use of technology, through the opportunities, like I said before, that are available to you in PLP that other students don't have access to, such as the field schools, and also just a project-based learning classroom that is designed and delivered by a team of teachers working much more closely together than you would find outside the program. We are the school district's only one-to-one technology program, which means there is no other school in all of North Vancouver that has a program where students use technology, one piece of technology for every one student for all of their core learning. We have been recognized as an Apple Distinguished School, which means we have a fancy banner in our classroom. Does not mean that we can offer you a discount, unfortunately, but it actually is really, the exciting part about it is it means we are part of a small group of schools in Canada that have been recognized for the work that our students do. And it's a nice professional learning community and networking community that our students and the teachers have access to. We are also about real world experiences that can help students stand out from the crowd. We are in that season right now where our grade 12 students are doing scholarship applications, applying for university, and they have this rich portfolio of experiences, and not just things that they can describe, but evidence that they can point to and show for how they have put their learning into practice. And the school's own engagement studies have shown that our students are more engaged, more enthusiastic, and more invested in learning than their peers. Okay, let's have a quick stop here for questions. I see lots of questions flooding in. What are the key things we should answer at this point, Emily? It's maybe unfair to ask you.
While you're on the topic of travel, just because you just ended that, are there additional costs for the trips?
Yeah, actually, I'm going to address that specifically in just a second. And so, yes, absolutely. Unfortunately, we have not found oil in the back parking lot yet.
And as you mentioned, the iPad as well. A couple of questions about do I have to have an iPad or can I have a computer?
Okay, great. Yes, I'm going to specifically address that as well. But I'll spoiler you. It's great that you have your own computer, but you also need to have an iPad. Yeah. I see a few people asking if grade 8s travel. Yes, traditionally grade 8s have gone to the Oregon coast. It's really, there's a cloud right now over what, around this time, we would be probably already pre-announcing our field studies for next school year. But as we know, the world is still a little topsy-turvy, so we're absolutely unable to do that. However, the grade 8s definitely travel. Okay, I'm gonna keep going because I do see some other great questions, but if we don't answer them, I think we can circle back. Okay, so here are the most frequently asked questions that we receive at this time of year, and maybe after we look through this transcript, we'll revise these because maybe you haven't actually asked these questions, but we're often asked, what type of student is a good candidate for PLP? Well, the simple answer is there is no single profile of a PLP student. We are absolutely, I cannot describe for you the typical student because we have the gamut of students. We are a diverse program. We encourage and welcome students that represent every type of student that's out there. Generally, though, they tend to be curious. They tend to want to make their time at school count, and they need to be either now or willing to cultivate a willingness to learn how to think. So I said that, you know, we are a thinking program. So for people who don't want to think, and you might think that is sort of counterintuitive, doesn't everybody want to think? Not so much. Okay, what should students expect? Students need to be willing to reflect on their work and accept peer and teacher critique. This can sometimes surprise students and even parents in the directness and the bluntness that we often are, either as critical friends, peers in the class, or teachers to students about their work. But this is part of our culture and it's how we get better. You need to be willing to share your work publicly with an audience. So I mentioned the exhibition tomorrow. That is just one form of that. Our students also all each have their own online learning portfolio, a blog that they publish to regularly and put their work out there. This also means their work can be displayed in class. It could be just presenting work to peers across the table, but we have a strong culture of sharing work publicly for critique, and then also because we're proud of it and we want to show it off. I mentioned before that you will collaborate with others. We believe strongly in learning being social and that we learn as a team. So you will work for others. Not every single project or not every single thing you do is a group project, not at all. In fact, probably that mix is more 50-50-ish, but there is always an element where you will work with others. On occasion, and not often, but on occasion, you must participate in events that are outside of regular school time. And you should want to embrace the challenge of working hard. So we believe that, again, it's a performance learning program that you want to perform. You've made this choice because you want to grow, you want to learn, and that's what we want for you as well. So we are here to help you to grow and stretch, and that's what we expect. Okay, often, if you haven't already asked this, and I think I saw this a couple questions going by there, what's the homework like? I've heard there's more homework. And we would probably suggest there is not more homework. In fact, I was talking to my grade 11, 12s the other day, and I'm saying, I haven't given you any homework. What have you guys been doing? There is not more homework, but there is more thinking. And this is often what confuses people. So we don't do very much what I would call like recipe work, where you'll receive like a worksheet that tells you to do 1, 2, 3, and it needs to look like this, and hand it in all exactly the same. And if every student in the class follows the recipe, we get 30 versions of the same assignment at the end. We rarely, if maybe never, do that. But what we do is ask a lot of questions. We do ask students to ask a lot of questions. And then the finding of those answers to those questions is the work that we do. So there's more thinking. And sometimes thinking is hard. In fact, often thinking is hard. And if you are stretching and trying to grow as a learner, that's what feels maybe sometimes like more work. We like to say that learners do beautiful work. They're proud to share it. And sometimes that requires revising work, going back and making things better. We don't really allow students to just hand in something and then we grade it with like a C or C+ and move on, right? We will instead say, hey, here's where you have an opportunity to grow, to demonstrate, to show some more sophistication. Here's some feedback on how to do that. Please incorporate that into another revision and give it back to us. So that's sometimes what feels like more, but it's not more. What this is really all about, I've used this word a little bit before, but this is why sometimes people think that there's more homework in PLP. It's because we are moving you, whether you like it or not sometimes, away from just being a compliant student that like does what they're told, to an engaged student, and finally someone who leaves this building empowered. Empowered to, like I said before, become a citizen that's going to have an impact on this world. All right, someone did ask, is there a fee for PLP? So there is no program fee. So individual courses might have a specific course fee, and that really is Maker. Maker might have, I think it's a $5 course fee, which is just for materials and things like that, consumable materials that we use during the class. But there is no specific fee for joining the program, unlike, say, the athletic academies and things like that. But there are some costs associated. So students do own and provide their own personal iPad device and required accessories. So that's basically the Apple Pencil and a keyboard case. And we require them to meet minimal technical specifications. So soon, and it would probably not be for a few more months, is we would put out the guidance for what that looks like for 2022, 2023. And we usually have recommendations at various price points. We try to we specify what we think is the most powerful device that would last students for their duration of as a high school student career, but with some options. Field schools are also optional, just like all field trips in the school district. They are operated on a cost recovery basis, which means whatever it costs to provide that experience is charged to the students. So they have fees. It is not uncommon, in fact, it is common for students to not participate on every field school. So it is not something that is necessarily an expectation. Every family makes different decisions based on priorities or decisions they want to make on whether or not students participate. Historically, our grade 8 trips pretty much have 100% people participate, and that's great because it is, like I said, a very important cohesive team bonding and expectation setting experience. But after that, especially for the senior students who are balancing maybe busier lives with extracurricular jobs, et cetera, it's very common for not every student in the class to participate. So that is normal. I noticed there were quite a few questions about how many students do we accept and how do we choose them. So let's go through that very quickly. We are an enhanced program, so that's why there is an application process. That seems daunting and maybe even a little bit scary. So if you visited the website already and kind of looked at what that's all about, or been talking to some people, you might be wondering, what's this all about? How do I make the cut? Well, there is no cut per se, okay? We are not screening students to find those that are suitable and grouping people into suitable or unsuitable. The application process is really not it's not like that. It is not like UBC's personal profile matched with your GPA, and then we have a formula, and then we weight it, and then we see who is at the top of the list. Really, the application process, and joining this meeting tonight and listening to me for almost an hour so far, is really the first step in your application process, because it's part of a conversation that you as the applicant, your family members, the references that you bring to this, and us as PLP to get to know each other. We want you to make an informed choice to understand the learning community that you are joining. We want to make sure that you are going to thrive and be successful. There is no one type of student. You do not have to have straight A's. You do not have to have straight C's, right? There's no mathematical formula with grades. There is no magic formula of extracurricular references. It doesn't work like that at all. We really want to encourage all students that think they want to be in this program to apply. How do we select students then? Well, we are looking for diverse students from diverse backgrounds that are curious and want to learn. The number one criteria is, will you be successful in a PBL environment? Will you thrive? We need students. We are building a learning team. Just like on a sports field, we need players that can fill all the positions across a team on the field. So really do not screen yourself in or out based on what you think we're looking for, because we are looking for you. How many spaces are available? That is really a question that is unanswerable because we don't know. The total spots available are dependent on how many people apply, and then the ability of the school to accommodate timetables for student needs. That's sort of a weaselly answer, but for the last few years, we have had 2 cohorts of grade 8 classes. So roughly PLP classes are the same size in number as the non-PLP classes in the school. So that's roughly about 25 to 28 students per class. And we anticipate, having a large number of applicants again for this year. So we don't know. There is not a hard and fast number at this point. One of the reasons why it's not even 2022, but you're hearing me talk about September 2022, is we need to start the process of figuring out how many people are interested in learning in PLP, so that the school then might be able to organize suitable timetables. So that's why this process starts at such an unholy early date. The application process. Okay, So if you have not visited our website, I would encourage you to do so and finding the link right at the top of the page called How to Apply. It's almost at the very top of the screen. And it will walk you through in specific details all of these steps. The first thing you need to do is create your Shobi account. So we use this app called Shobi. In PLP, all students use Shobi to keep track of their assignments and to hand in their work. And as an applicant, you will do the same thing. You will create an account, and everything that you need to do is already in there waiting for you, all the instructions. It looks like a long list of things to do, and it is kind of scary. I'll be the first to admit that. But I think once you kind of break it down a little bit, you'll realize it's not so bad. We do ask you to make a video. This is a great way for us to get to know you and for you to show your personality off. It is not important for it to be like a super razzle dazzle special effects amazing video, right? We sometimes get videos like that, but we also sometimes get very basic videos of just someone sitting there talking to their camera. That's not, the quality of your video is not as important as really the message, what you tell us. So the question that we ask you to respond to and what we're looking for in the video is described on the application page. It's a short video too, 2 minutes or less. There is a selection of documents that we ask you to hand in, some things like report cards, and there's a student questionnaire, there's a parent questionnaire, all of that detailed, and you can fill that all in. It's all in Shobi waiting for you. The teacher reference, we do ask you to find an adult that knows you well. So probably a teacher, somebody who has taught you before, either your grade 7 teacher now or a favorite grade 6 teacher or somebody like that. What we ask you to do is go and speak to them. Tell them that you are interested in applying for PLP and that you need them to, you would like for them to be your reference. What we ask you to do is provide us with their name and their email address, and then we take it from there. We will contact your teacher and have a little chat with them or have them send us a little form. Once you give us the name and phone number, you don't need to do, the name and email, you don't have to do anything else, okay? And then lastly, the interviews. We ask you to come and talk to us. So that's maybe the scariest part, because if you're seeing me in this little box now, you're gonna have to see me like in real life. That's not scary. Hopefully it's not scary. We have a short little interview with you. Come in, we talk to you for about 10 minutes. Fantastic opportunity again for us to get to know you, for you to ask the questions you have about PLP, and for us to sort of tell you a little bit more about how the application process is going to work from that point going forward. And then after that, we have what we call the group interview, which isn't really an interview, it's more of an activity that is the last thing that you have to do. All of this, again, is detailed on our website. That's at plp.ccov.ca, or I notice Emily put the direct link in the chat there. If you go to plp.ccov.ca, at the very top of the screen, there is a how to apply button that will run through all of the dates, all of the requirements, and a link at the bottom of that page to the details of how to do everything. For your calendar, the group activity interview is February 16th at 4 p.m. at CCOV. That is going to be a face-to-face, in-person event as of today. Now, that may change depending on reasons, but as we sit here today, that will be in person. Okay, so very quickly, we're coming to the end of my talking portion. We have the timeline. January 31st is the application deadline. By that time, we need you to have gone to Shobi, created your account, uploaded your video, your documents, and provided your teacher reference. After January 31st, individual interviews will happen from the 7th to the 14th. You can book those starting today. In fact, I already know some of you have, because I saw your notifications there. So the time slots are available for those. They're after school on those dates. If you'd like first choice of times, feel free to book those tonight. Same thing with the application components. You do not have to wait until you have everything ready before you start sending us things. If you, for example, already have your report cards ready to go, just upload those today, and then you can cross that off your list. You can do your video later. So you don't have to wait. You can do the individual pieces as you are ready to. When you log into Shobi, that should all make sense. The group interview, we mentioned that's on February 16th. On February 25th in the afternoon, you will receive the first offer of acceptance. That's when we will, by email, contact you and welcome you to PLP if you are successful in your application. That comes with enough time by March 4th for anyone who is not currently a Dorothy Linus English, Cove Cliff, or Sherwood English student. So if you are naturally coming to Seacove by virtue of being in our family of schools, you do not need to request a transfer. But if you are currently in French immersion, or if you are coming from a school outside of those 3 English schools, then you will need to formally request a transfer to Seacove, because I hope by now it's clear that if you are in PLP, it's a full-time program. So you will need to become a student of Seacove to be a PLP student. So before March 4th, you are required to go to the school board office and formally transfer to Seacove. If you are not currently a North Vancouver School District student, so you're coming from outside the school district or outside of our area, then you also will need to register as a NVSD student and request placement at Seacove prior to the March 4th deadline. The list of accepted PLP students will be with the registrar as of February 25th. So they will already have that list and anticipate you coming, but you will need to complete that paperwork by March 4th. All right. A lot of information tonight, and I see Petra has joined us as well.
We've done our tag team. Emily has left, and I have come in very seamlessly for a change. Unlike earlier video, I was watching her.
Okay. PLP.seacove.ca is our website. That's where you can learn more about the program and our core beliefs. You can also learn how to apply for the program. And if you're curious to see the kinds of work our students do, every one of their learning portfolios is linked there as well. So you can click around and see on the students at all the grade levels and the different things that they've done over the years. You are more than encouraged and free to email us at plp@seacove.ca with your questions or anything you would like more information on or seek clarification on. If we did not answer that for you tonight, you can try calling the school. You will reach the switchboard and then they will probably just tell you to email me. So, but you can reach us at that as well. But there's no way to leave voicemails for us. So it is probably best to email. Reminder that the application deadline is January 31st, 2022, which is for priority consideration. And we do think that there is going to be a lot of interest in applying this year. So I would encourage you to not necessarily wait until that day. But after that date, we will only have late application consideration and there may not be space available. All right, that brings us to our very last question break. And if Emily's left, I don't know if Petra. Okay, so now let's take a pause. In fact, I'm going to turn my camera off for a second and just grab a glass of water because I've been talking the whole time. You can go ahead and just start answering some questions and then I'll come back.
Okay. I hope I don't repeat myself, everyone. Apologies for being late. I was listening, but half listening, and you may hear some noise behind me. We're both, Brian and I are both still at the school, and so some things are happening. Anyway, so I'll try to answer some of the questions from the chat. As Brian and Emily shared earlier, my name is Petra Willems. I'm one of the humanities teachers from the Performance Learning Program. So I will do my very best to try to answer some of the awesome questions I saw in the chat. I am going to pick and choose which questions I answer. So I'll do some of the fast ones. Technology based, the iPad you need, we don't usually tell you till after admission, after all that, because Apple surprises us with iPads every once in a while. So you never know, maybe they'll release a new iPad just in time. So rather than telling you right now, we'll just wait and sort of see, and we will tell you in advance. We usually try to announce that long before the summer so that you guys have this summer to do actually some summer learning on it as well. So we'll share information about iPads a little later on. The monitoring the iPad question, a couple of people were asking about how do we handle the technology and that, and I'm not sure you touched on that, Brian. Did you?
No, we didn't.
Okay, answer is we don't. We believe that this is a learned skill. We work really hard with our learners to use the technology appropriately, much to their dismay at times. We work a lot on managing that. And usually, to be honest, by about October, November, that's where grade eights are. And the iPad use actually is for learning. So we actively build that skill in, and for the rare occasion that skill can't be built in, that becomes a further conversation and something we work on. The question about if you bought an iPad recently, is that going to work? Totally, it depends, is the answer. So we can't answer that until a little bit later on. We do our very best to make everything workable. But as someone who was working on a very old iPad for a long time, it is nice to have something new, isn't it? Let's see. There's quite a few questions about the application. Brian, do you want, I know you talked about it, but things like what should the video look like? The answer is, I think, and Brian sort of said this, I'm sure, is that the video is what it looks like is less important than the ideas. You might have heard over and over again tonight that we are about learning, and that really is what we're asking about in that video. It's not about fancy skills, although those are awesome, and if you have them, great, or if you want to learn them, great. But it's really more about answering the question and being you and showing us who you are. Do you want to add to that?
No, I think that's exactly it. The question really asks you to share with us something that you're passionate about that is not school related. And you can interpret that as literally or as abstract as you like. You have a lot of freedom and latitude. It's really your opportunity just to tell a story. As Petra said, we're more interested really in like your thinking and your ability to tell a story with your thoughts. So that's much more important. If you have some skills you want to show off, great. If you want to make it very simple and straightforward, that's also great. One of the nice things about if you're asking that and hearing about this now is you don't have the pressure of doing this in a couple days, right? You have over a month to work on it. We are always encouraging students to talk to their families, their friends, like maybe even get some ideas, maybe even make a first draft and then get some feedback from people about like what you might want to change. But don't overthink it. It's not, none of the application components should cause you to be stressed or like something you need to really like worry about. We're really just looking for you to just show us who you are as a learner.
Other questions, is the program only available at SECO? Yes. This is a SECO based program. It is driven by the passionate teachers you saw on the call tonight, and it is only homed here. If you're accepted, can you change your mind? Yes. I was gonna make some kind of comparison. I couldn't quite get there. But we don't recommend it. There's a number of reasons for that. Many practical versus like if you're putting in a transfer to the school, it becomes problematic, et cetera, et cetera. The other school you might have been going to doesn't have room then, and it does cause a lot of issues. So it is something that we ask you, and as you can see, that application process, like Brian said, it looks long, looks daunting. That's because we want to know that this is a good fit for you, and that you are interested in and really supporting it as well. As much as it's a great fit for the learning team we're building as well. So it's not a situation where we ask you to apply and withdraw and just see what happens. This is actually something we do ask you to really consider and think about before you do, and then ask these questions and attend these meetings, which is why we added this one in December as well. Lots of questions about the academic and the curriculum and the classic is this IB question. Do you want to tackle that one, Brian?
Okay, so it is not IB. So it is not. For those of you who don't know, IB is the International Baccalaureate. It's like a worldwide accrediting organization with a prescribed learning format and style that we actually are fans of. We think there is lots of great things that IB does and lots to like about the IB program. This is not IB. PLP, and I know someone before asked, like, how long have we been doing this? PLP is 10 years in the making. Next year will be our 11th year. So we have been doing this for a long time, borrowing from the best practice from basically across education. So in the early days, we were very fortunate and lucky, really, to be supported by the school and by administrators to go visit lots of interesting schools doing really interesting, innovative things. And over the years, we blended those with influences like IB and our own professional development and training in PBL, project-based learning, to come up with sort of our own blend. If you know about IB and if you're familiar with it, many of the same philosophies and sort of directions are similar, but we are not
middle years, not the diploma.
Yeah, the MYP middle years. Yeah, we're not accredited in the same way. So we don't have the diploma program. You don't get any special designation because we aren't IB. If you are curious and you don't know, only Carson Graham offers IB at the secondary level.
Is PLP academic and the curriculum, is it the same as the mainstream? The curriculum is, well, yes, all of the curriculum in British Columbia is the same. That said, the way the not so new curriculum works, gosh, how long ago did we get the not so new curriculum now?
3 years, 4 years.
Yeah, and then the pilot before that. So quite a while we've been working with it. The way it works is there are a lot of topics under different curriculum. So academically, yes, it's the same. You get a credit for social studies 8, you get a credit for English 8, science, math, etc. The differences are the topics and the depth of that choices made by the instructors. So for example, I'll just pick an example from grade 11 social studies. You may mention civil rights and the civil rights movement and the Black Lives Matter movement and that sort of that experience. We have traditionally gone a lot deeper with that and taken a longer time on that because it's something we're interested in and it's something we've attached to field school. And in the past, we've gone to the American South and seen some of the places. So that's a situation. We had a great relationship with the school there and a contact. So that's a situation where, for example, yes, that curriculum might have been covered in another class, but it's maybe one topic they touched on. And that's not to say that another teacher doesn't do another topic just as deeply or something they're interested in. So that's one of the things that are happening.
I see a repeated question about, can I be on the high school soccer team? And absolutely is the answer. So, so PLP students are very involved in the wider school community. So I noticed there's also a question about, are all the 8th graders together in the same class? So maybe answer those both at the same time. Seacove, if you're unfamiliar with the school, is a smaller school. It is the smallest high school in North Vancouver. So it is actually common for students to be in similar classes depending on what their course selection is. And that's true for PLP students for sure, but it's true for students who are outside the program as well. Because if you're in band or a certain elective choice, it might swing your whole timetable in a certain direction. So you absolutely can be involved in those elective courses. You can absolutely be involved in the extracurricular clubs and sports teams. You also can be involved in the sports and athletic academies. So that can't be guaranteed, but every effort is made for timetables to not clash, making it possible for students to do maybe the soccer academy or the basketball academy, and that is very common. PLP students are not the minority, right? So in grade 8 and 9, more than half of all grade 8 and 9 students in the school are in PLP. So it's not like they are a small group that aren't involved in these things. They very much are part of that school's culture. To answer more specifically, are they always in the same class? So one of the nice things with the double cohort at grade 8 is we do have them programmed and timetabled as a team, which means they are always learning at the same time, but it gives us as teachers the flexibility to meet in all sorts of different configurations, depending on what we think is best for the project that we're working on, the needs of the learners. And sometimes those can be in small groups, medium-sized groups, or big groups. So they are in the same cohort, but what that looks like in the classroom or within the context of different projects can be and often is different.
Brian, do you mind just going back to the timetable slide for just a brief moment, the one that you showed like first, where you were talking about the courses?
Yeah.
Because we had a couple of questions about that. So just, I know some of you might have come in late, so just to reiterate here, all students in that come to CECO will either have French or LAC, they will have PE, and they will take an elective. PLP students, instead of taking 2 electives, have 1 extra elective where they will be part of the wider school, as well as that PE and French or LAC. The PGP, as we call it, the personal growth plan, is their careers. And the maker, which is our art, design, and info technology class, is in the timetable, and that is an elective. We tell the students that it's a mandatory elective. And if you get that pun, then you're already my favorite English student. So yeah, the maker class, I had a couple of questions about, like, do we do robotics? How much drawing do we do? We do a little bit of everything, probably not robots, to be honest. But you can make a robot. There's a lot of choice and space for inquiry and growth and developing your own projects as well. There is drawing. We've seen an uptick in that lately, of course, so we do some drawing as well. We do some photography in grade 8 level and a bunch of other things. Do you want to add anything? I think that covered all those. And then just to sort of talk about the going into university, and do universities other than UBC recognize that PLP is some kind of special something? The answer to that is no, nobody does and nobody doesn't. The reality of universities, as Brian was showing in the UBC application video, is that it is really more about this breadth and portfolio of learning. And that is universally true of most universities now. So showing something like, I have done this performance learning program, I have chosen a different path, I have chosen to deepen my learning, I've chosen to do inquiry-based, project-based learning, I've chosen to learn outside the school, I've chosen to use technology, is something that is of interest to those universities. And it, depending on how they structure their admission, may or may not be part of their admission decision, just like IB may or may not be, or any other program of choice, robotics, lacrosse academy, be it what it may.
Mm-hmm.
And we had some questions about, do you have to be in PLP for life kind of thing, like 8 to 12? No, you could definitely try it in grade 8, or if you don't try it in grade 8 and you want to try in grade 9, maybe. It depends on space always. Is there space in that class? Can it fit in your timetable in that particular situation? And we try to accommodate, and we do take students at different grade levels as well. And just do most students complete through to grade 12 PLP? That's a hard one to answer. Yes, I would say yes.
Most students do.
Most students do. So if they have joined in grade 8 and they like that learning, they do stay through to grade 12, and that is true for most of the students. And then several questions about homework and load. And I know Brian touched on that earlier about, like, what is the homework like? I find this one a hard one to answer in school today, because maybe just because I'm a teacher and I'm old and be doing it for a while. I think that we work really hard to make the work you do, both in the classroom and at home, work that you feel the value of, and if not enjoy doing, feel that there's a bigger purpose to it. So I would say the homework like you've been doing, like I've watched, oh, I shouldn't say that story. Some of you may know her, but my niece, but you know, read the same book 3 times out loud because that's one of her homework, or do the same math sheet 14 times in the same question. I would say that kind of homework is not the kind of homework we're talking about. So is there hours and time spent on work outside of school? Yeah, but we also think that that's what helps learn.
But we're absolutely aware that like you are high school students, you are, you know, making that transition from grade 7 to grade 8. We do not expect, nor should PLP become all encompassing and your life. I see a question here, like I want to do band and basketball, volleyball, will it be overwhelming? It absolutely should not be overwhelming. To be a healthy, functioning, and effective PLP student, you need to have balance and you need to be able to do all of those other activities. And our students successfully do all those things. So you absolutely can be in band and in music and in sports and doing PLP. The actual number of hours of homework should not be more than it is in any other classroom. In fact, part of what PLP is all about is working with your classmates, working with your teammates in the classroom. Project-based learning means that the project is the process. So a lot of that has to happen in the classroom where we can work with you, where we can see you working, where you can work with your teammates, right? So a lot of the work that, you know, you would maybe, like I said, work on that project over a like sweaty weekend in the garage, right? That does not happen. So we're very sensitive to that. We want you to be balanced and sane people. So we know those things are very important.
Just before you, I know what you're going to say. I have one very last question that I want to ask last, because I think it's a good finishing question. But before we get to that very last question, one of the other questions was just about the like timetable of the day and like, do you have PLP all day and other classes? The answer to that is actually, we have no idea. I used to think I had an answer to that question, but if you know anything about COVID times in secondary schools, we've had 3 timetables in 3 years. So who knows what next year will look like. We try to actually avoid having PLP all day, but that may happen. And in fact, anyone who's in grade 9 or 10 would tell you about how last year they had like me all day for 6 weeks at a time. So it can happen. It's not ideal, but we again try to make everything in balance, like Brian was just saying. So we don't know what that timetable will necessarily look like and whether or not it would be like all PLP and then something else the other day. Just because of the number of classes PLP is, you just don't, we don't know that at this point. Is that fair to say, Brian?
I think so, yeah.
And then I have one question at the closer, but I know you're going to talk about application.
Well, I noticed there's lots of people asking about Shobi and how do I know what to do. So just brought up on the screen here, the application instructions. So if you haven't found these, you get linked to this from the plp.ccov.ca, how to apply. The detailed instructions are on this page here. There's this ridiculous checklist, which actually is really not so bad. I think once you start working your way down this, you'll realize it's not too bad. But right at the top is create that Shobi account. How do I do that? People are asking. Well, what Ms. Willems there told me, maybe they won't know that you can click these little arrows here to get more info, and maybe she's going to turn out to be right. So if you missed it, these tiny little arrows here, you can expand them to get the specific instructions. And there is the class code or the code that you need. It's actually the same for both groups. If you are already a North Band student, you can use your school district account. You don't actually have to create another account. If you've signed up, made a brand new account, that's fine too. It really does not matter. What matters though is attaching yourself to the application class, which is this code right here. Once you put that in Shobi, no matter how you get there, you will be attached to our application class and you will see all of the assignments and the requirements. So for those asking, how do you set up Shobi? Make sure you get to these instructions. Right there at the top are the step-by-step instructions. And then below that, again, the details on what you need to do for each of these parts of the application. And it's so much to read. That's what my current students would tell me, but it's actually not so bad. And really believe this, if you have any technical problems or any problems, questions, just contact us, send us an email. You can message us on Instagram, whatever the kids are doing these days. Saying, okay, someone's saying, was this on the website? So I'm going to show you exactly where to find this, if I can figure out how to do that. Bear with me. Petra, maybe you want to fill for one question.
Oh yeah, sure. I started replying in the chat, but I think that's somewhat inefficient. So someone asked how many teachers there are. So I did write back in the chat that how many teachers do we have right now? Who knows next year? But for sure, you'll see Mr. Hughes' smiling face and mine around. Yeah.
Okay, so here we are. If you're seeing the website, these are some of our current grade 8 boys, and they are just thrilled to be the poster boys of the website at the moment. Right.
Mr. Hughes, they're not all boys. It just happens in that picture.
Yeah, but there's 3 girls. So like, anyways. Okay, so if you go to the very top of the screen, if you're seeing my mouse, I don't know if you are or not, there's this how to apply button. If you tap on that, it'll give you kind of like an overview of our meeting tonight. So here's a summary of all those dates we talked about, an overview of the application, and then right here at the bottom, it says click for detailed application instructions. When you click that, it will take you to that page that you just saw. And if it's black for you, it's because my Mac is in night mode at the moment. But yeah, so you get this page here, and there are all those instructions. So there's where the details of exactly what to do. I've tried to make it as understandable as possible. Welcome and open to feedback. If you have suggestions or if you find anything unclear, I would be happy to hear that feedback so we can make it easier to follow.
The apps show me the website are free. Yeah, they do not cost money, so you can complete the application without any money attached.
Absolutely true.
Do you want to just quickly clarify? There was a bit of a confusion over the date, Brian, since you had it on the screen.
Which date?
Apparently you said that in January, or the next meeting, is it the 25th or the 27th?
It is the 27th.
Okay. Apparently the email from the school said it was the 25th.
Oh.
So anyway, we'll look into that.
Oh yeah. You'll receive another email in advance, but I may have made a mistake. Well.
They're asking again about the number of students admitted.
Yeah, so we don't have a fixed number. It really depends on interest and the ability of the school to accommodate that interest. So we anticipate there being at least 1 class. We probably expect there to be 2 classes, which means we would be looking somewhere in the upwards of 55-ish students, depending on things. There is no fixed cap, and yeah.
Oh, someone else said the 25th might have been the school night.
Yes, it's actually going to be both. So we will have, it is the general, correct, the 25th is a general new student to CECO meeting, of which we will have a small presence at, and then usually, as we're dragging on tonight, there's more questions, so we usually then invite on the 25th to come back 2 days later for a more in-depth night, where we have an opportunity to go a little deeper on what PLP is, then is able to happen on that 25th. So I think keep the last week of January open for all CECO of all the time meetings.
And then the other question, I forgot, and then I have my closing one is, and I'm sorry I buried it, was just about do students do different learners? Does PLP take different learners?
Oh, you want me to answer that?
Yeah.
Well, I think every learner is different.
Yeah,
I've never actually
I was going to say the exact same thing.
I've never met 2 that are the same. if you are looking for something more specific than that, which I probably think you are, you're absolutely yes. We believe that PLP is a program for all learners, for all children. We think everybody can benefit if it is the program that they want. So this is a truism for all students. If students choose it for whatever personal reason they are choosing it, then we believe it is for them. So we have had, if you want specifically things like students with IEPs, students coming from all places on the learning spectrum, we have had students over the many years that have brought all sorts of different exceptionalities and talents to the team and have been very successful. So we absolutely encourage all learners to apply. If it's something that they want, then we want it for them.
And then just about timetabling and friends and all that, those questions can't really be answered right now. We believe strongly that if you're joining PLP, you're joining a team. So to answer the question, does that sometimes mean that you collaborate with higher grade levels? Yes. Does that mean sometimes you work with people you don't want to work with? Yes. Does that mean sometimes you work with people you want to work with? Yes. The answer is yes to all of those. So you'll be working with groups of different people, and we work really hard to build that skill in a lot of different ways. And as for like conflicts in the timetable, will it conflict with band? Will it conflict with this? Will it conflict with that? We honestly don't have those answers right now. All we can repeat is exactly what Brian said in the past, is that PLP is a program that if you're choosing to apply for PLP and PLP works for you, then the school works really hard to make it work for everyone. And then I think the last question, maybe Brian, unless you had something else.
No, I was just going to say that I would encourage people who feel that their question was not answered. If you want to just hammer it in the chat again, it'll pop up and we make sure we grab it there before we sort of bring things to a close. Because normally, if you were attending this meeting in person, around now, your rear end would be getting a little sore on the folding temporary chair. I know you're probably all much more comfortable at home, but I am sensitive that you have given us this much time already. So if you did have any last minute questions and wanted to throw up there. Okay, so does Shobi cost money? It does not cost any money for the students or for applicants. The school, if you really want to know, the school does pay for pro access, which just allows us as teachers to have more functionality. Although if you are a teacher or somebody that wants to use Shobi yourself, they do actually offer a very generous free tier. But we do pay, the school does pay for the features that we have, but no charge to the students. Does Maker compete with Band? You can choose both. You can choose both. And what's the date of the group interview? That's a great question. Let me quickly remind myself so I give you the right information. It is February 16th. Group interview, activity interview, February 16th, 4 p.m. here at the school. The video needs to be no longer than 2 minutes, 2 minutes maximum. No longer than 2 minutes. Can you do baking in PLP? That is encouraged. I enjoy baking. Anytime you wish to bake and bring me the product of that. No. You will not do baking in a formal way inside PLP, but you may do baking in your foods elective if your elective rotation includes foods. Now, I can actually already think we have had students, I'm not trying to tell you what to do, but we have had students do many interesting baking application videos over the years. And we have had students incorporate their love of baking in all sorts of different, actually, we had a grades, we had a student actually was with us for many years who loved to bake and was constantly trying new things, and probably every few weeks would bring in her latest creation. So yeah, we're very pro baking. Sorry, I got very excited about baking.
Yeah, a little too excited.
On school days, there are very few days. I could see people are sensitive to that. There are very few days that you will have to stay after school. We do participate in something called Destination Imagination, which it happens on a Saturday. So there are 2 Saturdays in the school year that you would need to be here, and there are occasional evening things that we do. The exhibition, for example, tomorrow night is an example. There's 2 of those a year. When I say that there's outside of school time, we're really talking about a handful of times, plus field studies, of course. Okay. I encourage you to Google Destination Imagination to learn more. DI is a worldwide organization that asks students to solve complex and hard problems and then compete in a tournament to present their solutions. Unfortunately, in BC, it seems to be the domain mostly of private schools. So we're trying our hardest to like chip away at their supremacy. And CCOVE has been very successful to doing that. And there are more and more public schools doing it as well. So it's sort of been rocked a little bit like by the pandemic the last couple of years. We had a virtual tournament last year, but if you participate in DA, does that help? Well, it certainly doesn't hurt. We are always looking for DI.
It would help if you were on the technical team. I have some teams who need your help.
Yeah, our teams are just now preparing for the tournament that's going to be upcoming early in the new year, and I think that's awesome if you've done DI in the past. DI is part of our Maker course.
That is part of Maker. Oh, I think someone asked who Sorry, I'm just getting late. Who teaches Maker? And I have, Brian has, Ms. Maxwell has, yeah, I guess that's it. Oh yeah, we've had this question a lot, actually. Or some variation of that tonight. Okay, maybe I'll let Brian go first.
What question you answering?
Do you have to be smart to join PLP?
Okay, well, I think if you are listening to this meeting tonight, you have already cleared the bar and you are extremely smart. I don't know. I don't know if I necessarily believe that anybody is smart, because I guess
that's what I was gonna say.
Yeah. I don't know what smart is. Yeah. I don't know what dumb is, if you think that's the opposite. No, don't worry. We think that we are what PLP is, and to join PLP, what we think you need to be is somebody that wants to learn. We want someone who is curious, that wants to learn. Everybody is starting at a different point on what that means. And everyone has different measuring sticks. We would never label somebody as smart or smarter than somebody else. If you want to learn, then we think you're smart, and that's what we're here for, is to help you grow as a learner. We're looking for you over your school year, right, to set a benchmark for yourself, to demonstrate that learning, to show evidence, to reflect on how you're doing, what you need to do better, and we're here to help you. So everybody is going to access that at a different place. Everyone's going to get to a different place, but we, as I said before, believe everybody can be smart. Everybody is a learner if they want to be. And as I said, I think if you're listening to this tonight and you've made it to 8:40 and you haven't hung up on me yet, then that shows me that you want to learn.
I echo that. Do you want me to ask my closing question, then maybe we can end the recording, and then if anybody has questions. This was one of the early questions, and I don't think you guys got back to it, so I'm going to read it to you, and I guess I will let you answer first, Brian. What are the most liked and least liked aspects of the program? I'm assuming they're not meaning from a teacher perspective.
This is I will say I don't have to think about an answer, but this is a great question for our student panel.
Yeah.
So I've already mentioned in our January meeting, we will have some students there from across the grades, and they will offer very candid and unvarnished answers to that.
Yeah, we don't prep them nearly enough.
We never tell them what to say, so it's always interesting for us to hear their hot take on things like that. I don't know. I mean, speaking of DI, that's probably the first thing a lot of them would say, oh, I hate DI. But really, they don't hate it at all. They actually secretly like it. It is a lot of fun, but it's kind of like what I said before. It's hard. And the things that are hard are the things that maybe it's easy to be frustrated with a little bit, but actually are the most rewarding and the richest experiences, just like thinking. So I think I know the students that have been, our grade 8s, sadly, and our grade 9s currently have never been on a real field study because of COVID. I know for our older students that have, they would probably say that that's one of their the best or most memorable experiences, because it is fun being away with friends, but it also introduces them to experiences and opportunities that probably they wouldn't otherwise have. And often they're surprised by how interested they are in learning. Anytime they discover that learning is actually fun, they're shocked by that a little bit.
Yes, and I would only add to that. I think sometimes they might say that they one of the things they don't like is how well we know them. Because at the same time as they like that, and that's a great thing, it also means we know our students well enough to push you and prod you and hold you accountable and want you to do your best, most beautiful work. So that's really challenging to anyone, including us on the teaching team, which is why I was kind of laughing about that as well.
Yeah.
And then just to conclude, for sure tomorrow, the open house, the winter exhibition, which this year, if you've been to our winter exhibitions in the past, sadly has no theme other than, as I told a kid yesterday, the theme is learning. So there is no official theme. And unfortunately, there's no shared food. So if you're used to getting Stormtrooper marshmallows, there's no Stormtrooper marshmallows. I am sorry, but no. But there will be a lot of learning on display. And if you check our Instagram, you may even see a preview. I've been adding previews tonight. So yeah, very exciting. And we hope we see you there. It does take a while to see everything. So if you come in at 7:15 p.m., I guarantee you will not see much. So yeah, we do say come early to see it all, but it is one of those things that if you want to see it, you do need to be here fairly early. I've done a lot of talking, I feel like, for someone who was late.
Mm-hmm. I am going to just throw in the chat box there our Instagram
Oh, that's a good idea.
link, so you can see that exhibition preview. But also, if you're curious, I know there were quite a few questions about field studies. You can just scroll back on that and you can see the places we have been and things we've done, because that tends to be when we take most of the pictures.
And in fact, they're pinned on there. You can go through all of Vietnam and see the pandemic developing step by step.
Oh, great question. No, absolutely. Tomorrow is for everyone. In fact, we would absolutely encourage from grandma to baby to come. It's for everybody. Everybody can learn. Oh boy, you're getting a preview of the disaster that is the room as things are. It will not look like that tomorrow. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to just say thank you if you've made it this far on the recording. I'm going to stop the recording.
Thank you, everyone.